Hello everyone, today we are taking a look at the YMZFPV Eagle 1. A 2-inch micro quad that comes in at almost 130 grams. Pretty heavy. Then if we had the recommended 380 milliamp 4S battery, it comes in at 170 grams. Of course, this can come with the DJI O3 VTX and camera, fully encased. There is not an option to buy this with the naked O3, and that contributes to the heavy weight. The red all-in-one flight controller down there is the F722. It's a 40 amp all-in-one, which of course does have your ESC and OSD. Pretty tough to see it, but right behind all that grass and debris back there is an XLRS receiver from Beta FPV, and the T-style antenna as you would expect. The motors are RC in power, 1204, 5000 kV, and the props of course are the GymFan 2023 tri-bladed props. We've got quite a bit of metal back here, also contributing to that weight, and there's more metal up here, again contributing to that weight. This centerpiece here is plastic mold. It's not a 3D print that gets inserted as you insert your camera. Carbon fiber is probably 2.5 millimeters thick. Top plate looks to be about 2 millimeters thick. And motor post to motor post, I'm getting 100 millimeters. It does come with 2 battery straps. I chose to use them because really with the battery, neither one lined up great by itself, so 2 I thought was appropriate. But it didn't come with any rubber pads to put your battery on top of, so it wasn't bonking into the top button head of these screws. So I'd added a little bit of my own. It does come with these 3D printed mounts that you can use for the 380 milliamp battery, but I wanted to use or try at least some other batteries just to see how they felt and to get a measurement for flight time. But you can use these. Also comes with an extra set of props. Hard to see in there, but 2 little screwdrivers, which I didn't need. I ended up with 2 extra prop screws. It also came with 2 sheets of stickers. We're gonna jump right into our slow flight here. This is the goggle view or the DVR from the goggles, to where you get to see the battery voltage, the amp draws, the flight time, the flight mode, which air mode is kind of always used. Even when you're not in another mode that's self-stabilized. So this isn't angle mode or horizon mode. This would be what you call acro or rate mode. But because we have air mode, which keeps the prop spinning all the time, it shows air mode on the screen. Of course, we have our XLRS values in the top right and our throttle position, which might be most important on the top left. So this being a 2-incher with an O3, the weight should be expected to be up there, at least until you go naked, and even then, it's going to be a little bit heavier than other HD versions. But unfortunately, it's just heavy. And I've already provided YMZ some feedback, and I gave them some ideas, which after the flight footage, I'm going to kind of have the face-to-face discussion to make sure that my ideas are as clear as I can make them. So the next product with an O3 is much more popular and much better for all of us who like to fly and who like to fly the DJI O3. If you're not familiar, YMZ is a relatively new company to the FPV market. They made the Lightning 1, which was a nice flyer. It wasn't a top performer. You know, they have that design aesthetic where they use quite a bit of metal, and they have that kind of futuristic, sharp edge, sort of Cybertruck, Tesla sort of design element. And I think there's some opportunities to kind of retain some of that, but also bring the weight down without so much use of metal, because those metal pieces, they're adding a substantial amount of weight, especially in micros where they're so sensitive. So when you're flying a slow, flat, sort of cruisy flight, exploratory flight like I'm doing here on the 380 milliamp battery, or even if you use a 450, but my 450s are old, the flight time will come in around 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So that's about what you can expect in this sort of flight style. Weather data, it is getting cold. This was actually before Thanksgiving, maybe even 10 days to 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, because we got 7 inches of snow the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And in this video, you'll see my yard in kind of various states of disarray, you might say now. And then I work on cleaning up the leaves, of course, over the course of the time that I've been flying this. Of course, when the snow was on the ground, I waited for the snow to kind of melt off. Actually, was just on a flight over my lunch break today. The winds were fairly high. And that's one area, I guess, where weight comes in handy in a micro, is you can fly it more steadily in higher winds. But just as a proof of concept, let's jump over to the end of the flight so you can see the flight time. And then we're going to go into the faster flight. So obviously this is a different day. It's very, very gray. It was very, very gray for about 3 days. And you do see on the pool cover, there is a fair bit of water. So yeah, I'm aware of that as I'm flying around. Weather is, it's about 44 degrees on this day and 12 mile-an-hour winds as I come flying through, and I kind of clip right through that branch. I guess that's another bonus if you want to look for the sunshine through the clouds of a heavy micro, is it doesn't get taken down by little branches like that. You will find that in this video I do all my typical stuff, but nothing extraordinary. But I think the thing that doesn't necessarily come out if you're not an experienced pilot is how much throttle you have to use and how much slower I might be moving than, of course, say the analog version of this, the Lightning 1. Which again I thought was a good flyer. And by the way, if you're interested in either one of these products, I do have a coupon code down in the video description, or maybe you're just looking at some of the parts that they have available to build one of your own or build something different altogether. I believe that discount code works for all the products on the YMZFPV website. So I will link that down below along with this product as well. This flight time on the 380 milliamp 4S battery comes in about 220, and I did have a few flights that came in closer to 230, and that's just kind of a variance. On my 450 milliamp batteries, and they are a little bit tired, they're aged, they have seen quite a few flights. I got about the same depending upon the battery. Now, we do see a lot of low battery and land now warnings, and it's just these, it's a heavy load, and you have to apply lots of voltage in order to spin up the props in order to maintain that flight path and flight style. So this is a little bit annoying. Of course, with the DJI O3, you don't have to look at this as far as if you're reviewing your footage. The flight is also stored along the VTX, so you can just pull that off of USB if you'd rather use that. Of course, that does not have any of the beta flight information at all. Typically, I would have adjusted my battery voltage so it didn't annoy us quite so much, but in this particular case, I kept forgetting to do that in between the days that I was flying it, even though I had a bunch of days where I couldn't fly it, because again, had those 7 inches of snow. The flight has ended. You see our voltage comes way back up after we disarm, and that kind of shows you the load, and this is with the recommended 380 milliamp 4S battery. Okay, before we get into the deep dive down on the bench, I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of face-to-face on here. What I submitted or sent to YMZ to, instead of just bashing the company and the product, I always try to give them feedback to where their next iteration, their next quad, can be a better product overall. So that way, if anyone who's interested in it, if they buy it, they'll get a better product as well. And one of the things I recommended to them was to go to a 2.5-inch prop. They could probably use the same motor size. They'll probably need to use a different kV of motor, but this is a 1204. That should run most 2.5-inch props just fine. And that will help with creating more thrust, so it makes it more fun to fly. Also makes it fly longer in those sort of exploratory flights. So that was the one thing that I recommended to them right out of the gate. Also, just overall weight reduction. You know, we have a lot of this metal, and we'll take a look at all of this metal because I think there's more than maybe you've already seen in my video and potentially others. But if we go to a 2.5-inch prop, we only have to increase our prop or our arm just a little bit. So that carbon fiber increase in weight is going to be negligible, I think. But it's going to make it a much better flying quad. And that will allow them to stay with their design aesthetics of using the metal and having the beveled silver edges, and quite honestly, having a lot of engineering that is part of a look and feel and not necessarily part of the flight. So that's kind of what I sent to them. Hopefully in a longer format, this will make much more sense to them. And as we dive into the desk, that will also bring some clarity into what I'm expecting from micro quads. And you might see something different altogether, and that's okay. Leave your suggestions down below to what you think of this product and your thoughts on micros, weight, performance, things like that. Flight times. I hear flight times all over the map. Some of our, I think, veterans, if you get 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes of aggressive flight, aggressive flight style, whether that's doing many punch outs or some punch outs, what have you, I think that's kind of the time frame that our more aggressive flyers are looking for, and those that are more casual flyers or exploratory flyers are looking for just about as much flight time as they can get. out of each and every battery. So as I mentioned, you know, they have a lot of sharp edges that they use in their design aesthetics. And for companies, that's one of the ways that they're going to try to differentiate, to draw eyes to their product. But these metal pieces are very substantial. This is not completely hollow. This is kind of just got an edge to it, so you can place these plastic pieces inside. And then you can lock down your camera angle with the secondary screw. But if you use the secondary screw, of course, you don't get adjustable camera angle. And there's not a lot of camera angle you get. As you can see there, I think that is probably close to 10 degrees possibly. And then maybe as much as, that might be 35 degrees. So that would cover most people, but possibly not everyone. On the product page, they don't talk about this, but there are some little hardened plastic washers, spacers that they put between the VTX and the carbon fiber, and that's where you would kind of either slide these, which I found out of frame. I found these kind of cumbersome to put in. Plus, it only, in my case, these only fit the 380 milliamp batteries. But you can do 450s on this as well, which I did explore, as I said in the video. You could probably do by its length up to 520, and then beyond a longer battery than, say, a G&B 520 or 530, you then have to move it forward because, again, this is secured down in the back here. That, you know, you have to be able to get to this. So the longer your battery gets, the more forward it's going to push. And then if you use a higher camera angle, you may find you're looking at the bottom edge of your battery. So beyond a 530 or 520, depending upon which one you get, yeah, I think that's a 550 that's more square is going to work just fine. But I found the weight of those batteries just to not be worth flying. In my case, because I had other options. If you've only got the very square sort of 550 4S batteries, those will work, but they just won't give you quite the flight experience that I've shown in this video. Also, I shortened my camera angle, or my camera cable, not angle. I used a little zip tie down here because that was one of the areas of risk that I was looking at for, you know, if I were to crash or just have something come flopping out. So they did not include the zip ties. I included the zip tie myself, and then I looped through the zip tie and down to the bottom side of the frame. Of course, over time as I land, because we are landing on the bottom side, there's no feet to this anywhere, I am going to have to be aware of this little piece right here. And as you can see, as we look at the bottom, even the metal, this is metal too, comes all the way down here to the bottom. So even though it's probably fairly lightweight aluminum, that's adding to the weight. They did use a capacitor over here on the side. I can't quite read what it says there on the top, but it's always good to have a capacitor to help clean up your voltage spikes that you might experience, and also can help with tuning as well. The antenna is held again back here by some more metal pieces, and you can see how that's got screws in it as well. So I think there. Well, let me cover the metal additional back here. Back here, this is kind of a brace that goes across the back where our receiver is. That holds the receiver in. And putting, like, I had to put my O3 in, and then I had to take this out in order to route my antenna through there. It all got pretty cumbersome to where I had to disassemble the entire top part. And it's, you know, it's a tight, small 2-inch package. So getting my fingers in there, getting everything routed where it needed to be, a little bit of a challenge. The XT30 has got a PCB that it sits on and a slot that it slides into, so it keeps it nice and mounted right there for the most part. I don't think you'll have any problems with that. But as we go back to the design and the weight of this thing, you know, there's just so much metal. I mean, look at the length of that metal here, and then we've got these kind of design elements in the top and bottom that go all the way to the top and bottom. Top and bottom, said that twice. And we have a similar spot. You know, this is created just for antenna routing out back here. So I think if they wanted to keep with this design aesthetic, they could still do this with carbon fiber pieces. It's probably going to change the body dimensions a little bit. But you remember how we used to have side plates that held our camera, and then they would have notches in the top and bottom plate that the side plates would then go in, and then somewhere else along the body you would have some standoffs, and they could go with some smaller standoffs that are a little bit lighter. So if you did standoffs, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, of course a little bit of a wider stance as far as the body goes, you pulled all these metal pieces out and used carbon fiber with notching on the top and the bottom to kind of put things together in pieces. I think that's going to decrease the weight quite a bit. And if they get creative with their carbon fiber, they could still do some edging on this. There's colored carbon fiber out there that they could use. You could probably have a manufacturer cut carbon fiber that has a silver edge to it. It's probably painted on and would wear over time, but that is another possibility to where their design aesthetic could continue in some form, but also decrease in the weight. And just to cover it one more time, I did use the 2 straps because neither strap is like in the center of the body, because that's where our screws are. So when you have a battery up here like this and you have a strap, you would probably be fine with one on either end as long as you got it lined up pretty good. But because I was trying different sizes of batteries, I wanted to make sure that my battery stayed on. You can see that it's pretty dirty. Yes, I did a fair bit of crashing. I had one particular crash where I zoomed through the bush and had a leaf land on my FPV camera and stayed on there until I disarmed, and then I got very lucky as I came down to the top of the pool cover, and the pool cover had water on it, but thankfully not covered with water. It just was a thin layer, and I came down and was able to get out of there, and then I flew it back and was able to clean it up a little bit to get the water off the props and whatnot to try to minimize the potential for damage. I don't think durability would be an issue with this, even at this weight. Like I said, I did have a number of crashes, and one of the things that's always a challenge for me when it comes to micros with weight and throttle management is I like to fly low, so many times I would end up in the grass, and that's why we see all these different grass stains. And then I would need to turtle mode to get out of the grass, and I did that a number of times. Sometimes I even had to use turtle mode when I was upright in order to clear the props from the grass. Thankfully, the grass this time of year is, while it's green, it's very, very short. It's not really growing right now. It's probably not as thick as it normally is, so that would allow me to turtle mode and then fly away after I would have one of those low passing crashes of some particular type. So I don't like just bashing a product. I know that sometimes, especially in this day and age with YouTube and social media, it's way more popular to just be hyper negative and to just be bashing. But I think if you are doing sort of flat exploratory flying, this will be fine. You can do some more aggressive flight like I showed in the video, but your expectations for the performance need to be tempered quite a bit. And you don't want to be trying to use big heavy batteries to get more flight time, because I think once you get over that 530 as far as G&B batteries, that weight of those batteries, once it climbs, you're not going to get any more flight time, but you've got to manage that battery weight, especially in aggressive flight with more and more throttle, more roll, more pitch in order to be able to do everything that you want to do. But if you're flying relatively flat, more exploratory, it is a viable product. It is one that I think is one of the smaller packages without prop protection that does carry the native DJI O3 video system and camera. But if you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, YMZ, you might have some questions for me too. Please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.